I'm just going to use a 2016 action comedy film. Next slide, please. Which is Central Intelligence. So that is Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson. Okay, probably not all that controversial. There you go. Now, if you just were to search that, and when I teach a lesson like this in my class, I teach it in methods classes, I team the students up. I put them in little groups to work on this, but you can do this in a number of different ways. So if you just do a quick Google search for Central Intelligence, that movie, which some of you may have seen, from 2016, the first three hits, at least when I did it, say the film falls very flat, one of the most problematic films, overall plot did help to save the movie. All right, so those first three suggest that the movie is not all that good. But we know, and we can use this to teach, right, that that is a sample of convenience. That's just looking at the first three that come across. That's going to give you some strong sampling error, which means that the information you're looking at does not reflect the true distribution in the population, the breadth of it, the depth. It's accidental, it's too small, and it's just collected non-randomly, the top three hits on Google. It also, because Google always says to you, people also ask, and it says people also ask, is Central Intelligence a good movie? That may not be the best way to ask the question. It's a leading question. You're saying, well, is it a good movie? You're suggesting that you want it to be good. You're talking about it in terms of being good, as opposed to what is the general consensus on the quality of Central Intelligence, for example. So, right. So what can we use the AI for? Well, Notebook LM, as I said, you can upload the data you want it to use to respond to a prompt. So if you hit the next slide, here's what I do. And like I say, you could do this with any topic. You could do this with a science topic in psychology. You could pick big debates. You could pick debates about different forms of like the empiricist versus nativist in linguistics. You could pick any debate you like. As you see, I chose the very important debate over the critical consensus on Central Intelligence. So I went to Rotten Tomatoes, and I would have my students do this. I selected 3 positive and 3 negative reviews. I chose this movie for several reasons. One, that it seems non-controversial to me. And another is that it's lingering around half good, half bad. So you could see that if you did just, and in fact, we demonstrated that if you just do a Google search, you might get 3 that say, oh, it's bad. Or 2 they say it's terrible, and 1 that says, not so great. Right. So 3 positive and 3 negative reviews. And the quick tech tip here is the best thing to do for Notebook LM at this point is take whatever you want, in this case, reviews, print it to PDF, and then upload the PDF, and it will read the PDF. So that's what we do. We download 6 reviews, 3 positive, 3 negative. And then we sit, as a class, we sit and work up a prompt. Let's work up a good prompt. You could make this a lesson for the whole class and start with whatever prompt people just throw out at first, see what kind of results you get, and work on making the prompt better. Or you could run right to a prompt that you know is going to be pretty good. Now, here's the one I'm using here as a demo. Using these 3 reviews, so I'm starting with just the 3 positive, please describe the critical consensus on the movie Central Intelligence. Include appropriate quotes as needed, and also provide a brief summary of the movie itself as represented in the reviews taken together. So you run that prompt, you get the results from just the 3 negative reviews, and what do you think happens? You know what happens. They pan the thing, and that's what you see with the big thumbs down there. They think it's terrible. So you could use this in class to show, oh, well, if that's all people look at, then they might think everyone hates this film. Then we rerun the query. I started with negative, even though the bullets go the opposite way. And then we rerun the query with the positive reviews. And of course, they all love it. What turns out to be very interesting is when you add in something that feels factual. I added in, provide a brief summary of the movie itself as represented in the reviews taken together. That seems like just a fact. And it's great to talk to students and say that that's just going to be a fact, right? They're all going to be the same. Well, you may be surprised, and then you may not be, that if you look at the negative reviews and you look at the plot summary, it's different from the plot summary from just the positive reviews. It feels like the people who didn't like the movie were watching a different movie. As you can see, that can be reflected in what we see in the news today, in humanities, and looking at literature and art, and looking at different science debates, political debates, that people seem to be seeing different realities. And that tells us something about the data sources we're using, and it tells us a little bit of something about how we should evaluate that evidence and whether we should trust it implicitly or not, or whether we should look at it a little bit more with critical insight, with some kind of critical thinking. And then I run them with all six together, and we see what happens. We compare, we contrast, debate, discuss. And I use this to bring up issues like confirmation bias, issues like non-representative sampling, and just generically, overall, evaluating evidence, as I said before. Also works well as a kind of object lesson for trusting Dr. Google, for example. If you look up something, if you just look up, I believe I have this disease, I'm sure that this is the disease I have. What are the symptoms? Well, you might match those symptoms, but what you failed to ask, of course, and this is a Bayesian problem, right? But a conditional probability problem. What you failed to ask was, well, what other disease could these three symptoms be associated with, and how rare is the disease I think I have? So you can use it to teach in your area, in your content area, this general approach. You can use a whole class for it. Like I said, you could do it, have students do it at home. I also have, and I'll just finish up real quick here, but you can also use it for those of you who do any kind of work with qualitative data analysis. You can have students read the reviews and do their own summaries and then compare their summaries to AI summaries. You could test for inter-rater reliability. Where are the differences? Where are they the same? It can be expanded to be used for all sorts of different things.